coming out in a Melbourne cool evening again. My name's Kelly. I'd like to introduce Sarah McPhee, interior designer. I'll just let you all know I don't know anything about an interior designer, so it might be a good perspective to come from. I've never engaged one, but I'm a very curious person and I love to know what people do and what their passions are. And we'll be talking to Sarah about her company and her business, perhaps a couple of tips, but really I'm trying to draw out her passions and what she loves and the things that she can't do without in her life in the world. So when I told people I was talking to Sarah, one of the first questions was, can you please ask her how she got into the business? Because apparently there's quite a few people who would love to be love to be an interior designer, and it's not, I imagine, not a straightforward path. So that was one of my first questions, and just a bit of background as well, Sarah, how you came to be an interior designer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a good little
Thank you.
story.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't start out as an interior designer. I'll go into more of a backstory when you ask me a different question later, but I actually started out in events management and for big conferences for a not-for-profit organisation, but ever since, probably late high school, I wanted to be an interior designer. So I don't know, it just didn't turn out that way initially, but in actual fact, I think it was the best thing because in events management, I learnt skills that are not natural to me, like organisation, which are very, very important as an interior designer. You know, how to communicate with clients and customers, all that sort of thing. And I had some age behind me and some experience with owning my own house and renovating a house before being an interior designer. So so I had a few things under my belt, but it was shortly after I got married and I wasn't really happy in my role, and I sort of was talking to my husband and I said, this is what I've always wanted to do, and he said, well, do it. Now's the time to do it. We don't, when you don't have children yet or anything. So this was years ago, and so I went down the path, quit my job, studied full time just so that I could get it all done. Was very lucky to get a job as a design assistant when I was studying. Very lucky through the college that I was studying at, and then very lucky shortly after graduating to get a job for a prominent interior designer, Australian interior designer. So that's kind of how that came about. Started from the bottom again, working my way through. And in terms of starting the business, that was actually never really part of the plan. We moved home to Melbourne in 2016, and I just couldn't, there wasn't the right fit sort of available, to me at the time. And I'd had enough years behind me, I think, enough experience. I'd been very lucky. And my husband again, who said to me, well, why don't you go out on your own? You've got a wealth of experience behind you. So then, that's how it all started. It sounds like you've got a
really supportive husband as well.
Very
so
much
that's fantastic.
so, yes.
Fantastic, yeah. And where did you study? Was it in Melbourne or was it?
In Queensland, actually.
Okay,
Good. So
fantastic.
we were living there at the time.
And it sounds also like you bought a house early.
We did.
Like for you, it's hard for people to do that.
Well,
and you had that. Something to work on as well, I guess.
We did, and we've, we're on to our third now. We've learnt a few things the first time, knowing more the second time, and now again knowing a lot more again.
Fantastic. Very good, and the other question that I have from a personal point of view is and I don't mean to be rude, what do you actually do?
Okay, yes.
So, also, are you the person who paints the walls? Do you hang the picture? Do you choose where the photograph goes? Do you restore that chair? Or, yourself? Or is it a lot of drawing? Or, could you just describe what you would do in a typical day, or if a client approached you, how you start out with that client?
Sure. Yeah. So we are a full service interior design and decoration studio. So we do everything from planning and specifying for renovations and then following them through with the management side, alongside architects and builders, to my favourite part, the decorating side. And we do bespoke, everything's bespoke. So it's not sort of off the shelf, which is quite lovely because we get to create really unique and personal things for our clients. And, what I love personally in my own home, I get to incorporate in, I often find like-minded clients who, incorporate things that maybe belong to their grandparents or their parents or, along the way, in addition to the lovely bespoke new things that we bring into the home, and the beautiful finishes and joinery and all the space planning. So we do everything. We don't paint the walls or that. We outsource that to the tradespeople. But another fun part that we do though is art arrangement. So we work with a picture hanger on that, and that's something I really love to do at the end of a project is. Come back for a day and do that.
I can imagine.
Makes it.
Putting that art up is so important. So with your
touch.
company, say someone comes along and they say, you're working with them, but I've also got this gorgeous chair that was my grandmother's and it's in tatters. Does your company fix that?
Yes.
So
we choose a beautiful fabric. We have our amazing upholsterer. We've got a few in different states because we do work interstate as well. So they'll bring it back to life in, and give it a whole nother 100 or so years.
And when you give that back to the client,
yes,
I'm just thinking there's a show on TV that restores objects. Are there tears?
Yeah,
Has
well,
there
there's
ever
lots
been-
of smiles.
Yeah,
There's been tears, but very happy always, and very special to see something that belonged to somebody that they love so much. Now with adding their chapter to it, I think is
that's
very
wonderful.
special.
And keeping it going.
Because so often they end up on the side of the road these days.
And you mentioned family and family objects and things that are important to people. So one of the first things I heard about you was your background of your family, always emphasising the importance perhaps of beautiful surroundings, beautiful houses. And that's what I'm really interested about you. Can you talk about now your family background? Even your grandparents, I know nothing about this. I don't know what you're going to say. But I'd really be interested to hear about how you came to be so interested in art, how things look. Even was that from your grandparents or your parents?
I think it's funny. I speak to a lot of designers who, and even clients who, it's weird, like the role that their grandparents have played in their life. So many say, my inspiration first was from my grandmother or my nana, and that's very much the case for me. My grandmother and my nana, on both sides of the family, both had beautiful homes filled with beautiful things, family things, new things. They both had designers and decorators, in their homes. It was evident, but they both had great personal style as well. So their homes were very much who they were, and that I think is one of the biggest things for me, is designing a home around that reflects my clients and who they are, what they love. So that's been a big influence. Also, I suppose, I don't know, living in Melbourne, we're so exposed to culture, and I think my family, they just love culture. So the theatre, the ballet, the opera, going to the galleries. So I grew up around that, talking about architecture, and just that was always topics that that were talked about, that were interests for people in my family.
Was it mainly the females in the family, or did the men?
I'd say both. Both. Very much so.
And did the men like going to the ballet and the opera?
More so the opera, I think, than the ballet. Because the women would go to the ballet. So that's, my favourite performing arts is the ballet. I went when I was about 17 on a very cheap student ticket and fell in love with it. The first thing I saw. So what's your, like as a child, did you prefer one over the other? Were you taken more to something over the other, or what's your preference? Both, because ballet is probably my first love. I still remember being about 3, and it was close to Christmas time, and my nana took me all decked out in a beautiful little dress as a 3-year-old when you really dressed up to go to the ballet. And we went to a matinee, and we went to see the Nutcracker, and I still remember walking into the art centre, the carpet, it's still like that today. And watching the ballet, and I was hooked. I have 2 left feet. I did do ballet, but if I could have been anything, I probably would have wanted to be a ballerina.
When I went to the ballet, yes, it was a matinee. It was a 6:30 on a Monday, and I always remember in front of me, because you had the same seats, because you bought a season pass. In front of me were 2 little girls who sound a bit like you, and they were given cushions to sit on because they were too low in the seat, and they sat up. But by the end of the ballet, they were always like this because they couldn't stay up past 9 o'clock, and it finished then. But I always loved that idea of being taken to the ballet so young and having that influence. And some people think it's, too highbrow or too... But my goodness, it comes down to basics, and they're like football players, those people. They're unbelievable. And it's also that, I guess there's a lot of costume and decoration in there as well. It's such a beautiful theatre with the curtains as well.
I think that has me hooked.
Yes,
I still have. We've got my nana, my auntie, and I. We have season pass, like a season package, and we go every year together.
Do you still go?
Still,
okay,
So
Do you have a favourite ballet? Like, do you prefer the traditional?
Traditional.
Or, okay,
It's hard to pick a favourite, but I don't know. It's there's one called Capelio, which is quite funny and playful, and just I don't know. I've just loved it. I think I've seen it, but I've watched it on video. We had a video of it, and I think I probably nearly wore it out. I just loved it. That much. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. That's fantastic. And Melbourne has got that. It's always around, and
it is.
It's a fantastic place to see ballet. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. I'm glad. Okay. This next one. The question is, describe yourself in high school. I would like to know what you were like as a person, and what your report said. But I also would like you to think about if there was anything that you were like in high school that has translated to how you are now, in your career now. Like, was there something that you did then that people would go, oh yes, of course, you're always going to be this? So first, a description perhaps of your personality a bit, and then report.
I would say I was quiet and unassuming. I wasn't loud, I wasn't popular. I just was very happy to sit back and let it all kind of wash over. I actually thought I would take a very different career path though. I did athletics. I was a middle distance runner, and quite good, and I wanted to actually be a physio. Until year 11, when I did home economics as a subject, and we did architectural styles. And that kind of changed everything. And then I wanted to do what I was doing. I applied to study physio and interior design, and but then I don't know, the guidance counsellor says it's not really a viable career, and all that sort of thing, and I was confused, and then I didn't do either of those things. But I think one thing that did shape me, and I would say it's the sport, was the dedication and the determination, and really just setting, if I want to do something in life, anything, try to stop me is so that's just carried through my whole life.
That reminds me of parents that I've known who refuse to allow their children to do sport because they didn't agree with the competitiveness of it, but sport is not just sport, obviously. It's like you said, it gives you that determination, never give up attitude. And commitment. Very interesting. And so what would your reports have said about you?
Quiet.
Yes.
And I wasn't your traditional, I wasn't a student. My siblings are much more academic than I am in different ways. But I don't know. I never found, I feel like I never found my fit until I until I started doing this. I just think it was always supposed to be that way.
Lovely. Good. I just want to ask, because you're here, let's ask a couple of technical things and little helping points for everyone. I love my room to look neat and beautiful and welcoming. I love having people over, but I'm not good at decorating or anything like that. So, is there anything you could tell me or us? Perhaps 3 things that we could do. 3 objects, 3 things. So we've got a lounge room and we think, oh, it looks cold, or it looks, Is there 3 things that you give us a little hint about what to do today?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So 3 initial things. I think layering's important.
Okay.
So I think 3 things would be cushions.
Okay.
And a beautiful mix of different patterns, or in different colours if you like different colours, or patterns if you like patterns. But cushions would be a lovely way to add your first, and then lamplight, ambience. There's nothing like a room without a lamp in it, or 2 or 3. My husband always laughs at me and says, if you lived by yourself, you wouldn't ever use your overhead lighting, and I probably wouldn't. I would just have the lamps on, and when I'm home and he goes out and my son's in bed, the lamps are the only things on. So lamps and art. And I just think collect it. If you see something you love, buy it. And just don't, but I think at the end of the day, don't go out to be finished. I don't do it over, it can take time. Collect art, collect cushions. Don't, necessarily set out to do it all at once. Even though that's what we do for our clients, often they've been collecting for years, they've, beforehand, and then we just come in and bring it all together. And have you always collected art yourself? Yes, I have. We've always, we always have done, one thing every year. We often would be to buy something that's a piece of art, and over time we've just got this house full of it. And my nana in her retirement is an artist now, and so lots of her things as well, where I just say, well, you just see something she's done and say, oh, I'd like that, or I'd like that, and or could you paint me this, or so I just think art is, I don't know.
And have you got a favourite piece of your own art that you could not do without, and is it on show?
All of our art's on show. So we've kind of got it in the lounge room, in the hallway, in the bedroom, everywhere. In the dining room, it's everywhere. But that's tricky to pick one. But my nana painted a painting of my son running through the botanical gardens. It was he was probably 2 years old, and that is probably my most favourite piece of art. We've bought this beautiful big Aboriginal art work that probably was the most expensive one that we've bought, but still that is would have to be my favourite, and it sits in our lounge room just to one side of our lamp, and so every time you walk into the lounge room it's right there. And
how big is it?
Just small. It's a little, she does watercolour, so it's...
And Botanic Gardens in Melbourne?
Yes,
And from that painting, could you go back to the gardens to that spot? I was talking to one of the staff the other day. She went to a light show at the Botanic Gardens, and she said, I know trees there that I've known since I was young. It's an amazing place. We're
very lucky in Melbourne to have everything that we have.
Fantastic. I do agree about the lamps. I never had lamps growing up, and then I put 2 into a room and they changed the room, and I think they make everyone look so much more attractive. So I love them. Good on you. And thinking about Melbourne, I love Melbourne. I just think there's spaces in Melbourne that no one sometimes sees, and it's just such a beautiful city. It's and it's not too hectic. It's still not too hectic. No. So, are there any spaces in Melbourne that you really love? Perhaps indoor, outdoor, buildings, even not stores. Let's not talk about stores, but spaces that. Any places you really love in Melbourne?
Yes, we just have so many. I spent time away from Melbourne, which made me miss it so much more than anything. So I just the parks, nowhere else has parks like we do. We just have the most beautiful parks with beautiful old established trees. So take me to any park anywhere with a big tree and I'm happy. But other places, I love the National Trust houses. In particular, I'm a Mount Eliza girl. So on the Mornington Peninsula, there's one called Mulberry Hill, and it's the Lindsays, like so Daryl Lindsay and Joan Lindsay's house, and it's exactly as it was the day they passed away, or in a sense. And I just think it's just a magical place. I don't know what it is about that particular one, but the very first time I walked into his studio, I don't know, I just stood there for ages. I don't know what it was, but I just adore it.
Does that mean that the house or that room is sort of been imbued with part of their personality,
I think that's potentially, potentially. And there was some art. There was art around. There was just lovely textiles that he had lying around. But there was just something about the room that I don't know what it was. But that's probably my favourite.
Okay. Yeah.
One of my favourite places.
What about in the city? Anywhere in the city?
Yeah. This is probably sound a bit touristy of me, but the Block Arcade. I adore it. I just think, and again, from a design perspective, it transports you to a different time and place. Like you're not in, I don't know, you are in Melbourne, but you're not. And I don't know, it's just gorgeous. The tiles on the floor are just immaculate. I don't think there's probably other buildings that have been preserved like it, but I just think it's very special. And it's probably my favourite spot. And the tea rooms there.
Oh, which, very popular tea rooms.
My Nana tells me that my grandparents actually used to go on dates there, and my great-grandfather used to take her and her sister there when they were little. So, to go somewhere that they have been and now we go sometimes is just lovely.
It's funny you say that. We had some friends visiting from Italy pre-COVID, and one of them was a good photographer, their son, and he came back with all these photos that he took that I never even noticed. We're walking around, and one of them was of the Block Arcade, and he made it look like he had this eye, visitor's eye. He made it look absolutely like it was in Milan. Like, I just thought, my God, where's that? And it was there, and it was just the beautiful tiles, the ceiling, even the shops. And they just loved it. Like, it is such a magical place. And it doesn't. The other thing I love about it is that you don't have to go there. You just walk through it. So it's literally to keep out of the rain. You walk through the Block Arcade and get to the other side. But it's such a great experience to do it every time.
It is, and people do. And I feel like I did. Always, we'd go into the city to do shopping, and you'd just be on your way to get somewhere and miss it. But when you actually stop, I don't know. And it's just,
wonderful. We're lucky, aren't we?
Yes.
And we mentioned before, say you've had something restored for a client, and that special object. Are there any objects that you've like? What would be the most special objects that you've had restored for your? Perhaps it's a personal one or a business one. Is there anything that really stands out in your memory that's been a really big success?
There's been lots of things. I suppose pieces that are special pieces that belonged to people's grandparents. I always find, I don't know, because I just adore my grandparents. Pieces like that belonged to them. Where it might have been reupholstering something, or we might have taken it to a furniture restorer, and they've totally stripped it back and given it new life. In terms of me restoring something for myself, I've got a lot of things that belonged to family, but I haven't actually restored them myself. But one of my favourite things that I do have is it's a game called something. I don't know. It's an old school game. I think it's a card game. I don't know. But there are these tables. They're oval tables with marquetry inlay. And my nana, when they downsized a couple of years ago, gave me hers. And it actually was in the back kitchen in their old old Victorian when she was a child. And they used to put their shoes on it and just stuff. Like, it's gorgeous though. Like, it should be in a formal sitting room. Like, it's absolutely stunning. And so she got that when her parents passed away. They kind of, her and her sister, divvied up things, I suppose. And she had it restored, and it is just gorgeous. It's been my favourite thing one of my favourite things since I was little, and I just think how crazy to think that was all peeling back, and the way that it looks now is just So I just think that's a amazing success story. If that table can be looking like it is now, should be in a formal room. We don't have a formal room, but you know, I just think any of the old things that, you know, nobody makes things like that anymore. I think they definitely have a place in the home, even if you have a contemporary home. Like one thing.
I'm a bit of a believer in something that looks beautiful. It's a bit like you saying going to the Lindsay's home. There's something about it that you cannot put your finger on, you cannot explain to anyone, it's just there. So do you think there's a form in this table that that you love, apart from the memories that it evokes? Is the actual table a really beautiful object?
I think it is. Like I see them sort of pop up at, you know, antique auctions and things, but I think probably for me it's a sentimental thing, I suppose, and knowing that it belonged to somebody that was related to me that I never got to meet, like, you know, I don't know, I just feel connected to them in a way.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Are you known in your family as, you know, I've got that problem chair, or I'll go to Sarah? Are you the family
People do
holder
ask.
of things?
They ask me questions, but I think it's funny because I think my nana, who's still alive, she's incredible. Like she, you know, she's very creative. I think a few people in my family are creative. They don't know it, but I definitely do get asked
That's
questions.
a really nice thing for you to say about your family.
And you know, people will be out and about. Like my uncle the other day, they're away at the moment, and he sent me a picture of these chopped cushions on their bed where they were staying, and he just wrote "chop" with the picture of it. And like, but you know, so I get little things like that where they think, "Oh, Sarah will appreciate this."
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
And just in sort of towards the end now, I'm thinking about, so you're talking about Melbourne, beautiful places in Melbourne. I've got a couple of buildings in the world that I really love, and is there anywhere around the world that perhaps two of your favourite buildings? Is there anywhere that you think, okay, if I'm in London next time, or my son needs to see this building, or something like that? Could you talk about those two places, perhaps, if they exist for you?
Yeah. Maybe I haven't travelled broadly. Actually, we've kind of done the opposite. We've done the get the houses, renovate the houses, all that work hard. But maybe Notre Dame is something that I think is exquisite. And I don't know. I don't know. There's too many. There's so many beautiful.
So you would say
buildings around the world.
You've brought the beauty into your home.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm a bit of a homebody. And I'm quite. I don't know. I'm a homebody. So I'm quite happy to be in my own city, in my own home. And I don't know. I was just saying to a client the other week who shares the same thoughts as me. I said I would rather. I don't know. This is, and we'll, you know, once the world returns to a bit of normality, we'll do more travelling. But I said to this client, I said, I would rather make my home where I spend most of my time beautiful, as opposed to going overseas and staying somewhere lovely and seeing some lovely things for a few weeks a year. I'd rather have it every day of the week, every month. Good. So that's just me. And saying that, we have travelled a bit, but not broadly like some have. We'll wait to do that later.
Lovely. Thanks, Sarah. I've never met Sarah before, but what a lovely person to talk to, and how inspiring as well. And the fact that you bring that line, you bring beauty, your home is beautiful, and that's what you live with every day. That's really important, I think, as well. Thanks, everyone, for coming along this evening. We're going to have a few drinks and snacks, and any other questions you've got, you can come and ask Sarah, because she's good at it. Thank you, everyone, and give Kel. Thanks.